Are you looking for affordable owner finance land? Today, I'll show you some of our most affordable owner finance properties and how you can not only get water on your land without drilling an expensive well, but make money by hauling it. And this will include a case study on how one business makes $3 million a year. But before we dive into today's topic, a quick update on our inventory. Now, in case you're not familiar, my name's Erica. My company's Gokce Capital. I buy and sell vacant lands. Website is gokcecapital.com. That's Gokce Capital. And you can find all of our listings at Buy Land. So, a few updates. Our 2 remaining half-acre Luna County lots recently went on hold, these lots here, and one of our 0.42 acre properties in Putnam County went on hold as well. And just before this live stream, a 0.86 acre property in Greene County, North Carolina went on hold. So a lot of properties are being snatched up, but we still, as you can see from this map, have a lot of owner finance properties available in North Carolina, New Mexico, Colorado, Oregon, New York, and Florida. And we'll also have additional properties in new states in upcoming live streams. So if you see something that fits you, don't wait too long. Our properties do tend to move fast. And you can see them all on this map or scroll down the table to see a little more information on each property. But let's talk about today's deal, a 5-acre property in Castilla County, Colorado. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see, because we do have about 50 properties available, this is property number 746 in Castilla County, and it's 5 acres. And just to zoom out, Castilla County is in southern Colorado. So we can see here, just outside of Alamosa. Now, I do want to be upfront. This property is not necessarily for everyone. It's rural and off of a dirt road in an off-grid area. So if you're looking for city hookups and suburban convenience, this is not necessarily your spot. But if you love wide open skies, mountain views, and the idea of land ownership, this could be a good escape for you. So here's what makes it special. And if we zoom down, it is residential zoning. So theoretically, you could build an off-grid cabin or even potentially place a mobile home, although I do always recommend that you confirm all regulations with the county. There's no HOA, and yes, according to our research, you can camp in your RV for up to 14 days at a time, so perfect for weekend getaways or, a week-long getaway. But again, confirm all of this with Castilla County. Now the location, as we saw here, is right in the San Luis Valley. It's in the prairie, but it is surrounded by mountains. And 35 minutes away, you have the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve. About 40 minutes away, there's the Zapata Falls. You can see that there are plenty of peaks nearby and a wildlife refuge. And these peaks are about an hour away, including Blanca Peak, which is one of Colorado's famous 14ers. So this property is really for someone who wants a private retreat to camp, stargaze, or maybe just play around in the dirt with a dirt bike or an ATV. It also is potentially a lot for someone who's looking for an affordable getaway that also doubles as a long-term hold, or even someone who wants to do that off-grid cabin and is aware that there would not be any public utilities available for hookup. Now, I will say we've made this property very easy to start with. It is under $10,000 cash price, but we also offer owner financing. There's no credit minimum when you finance through us. There's also no prepayment penalty, and we will work with you to create a down payment and monthly terms that are affordable for you. The interest rate is also, we'll tailor that based on your down payment. So we're very flexible. Can you drill a well in Castilla County? So I am going to get into how to get water without a well. But according to our research, you can, if it's for residential uses, so not for like irrigation or livestock or commercial purposes, although you should confirm that with Castilla County. Just keep in mind that a well might be very deep here, which is why we're going to cover how to get water without a well as well. So don't they have first in time? My understanding is that residential wells are exempt, but again, it's a good idea to confirm that with the county. The other thing is you can hold this property or any of our for sale by owner properties if you have a well drilling truck. Hi, Zephael. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for joining all of these. Yes, if you have a well drilling truck yourself, it would be much more affordable. And yeah, you can use solar. Colorado is known for having lots and lots of sun, many sunny days, even in the winter. In terms of how much sun, we can look that up to get the exact number. How much sun per year? So an average of, say, 280 to 285 days of sunshine, which makes it a good place for solar. And the altitude in this area, it is in the prairie, so it's not as high as you might think it is, but it's surrounded by mountains, so the winters will get a bit cold. We can get so it does vary. The San Luis Valley is around 7,600 feet, and then they do have one peak that's a 14er. So, you know, the elevation, it's not as high as other parts of Colorado, but it is going to get a little chilly in the winter, but it'll still remain sunny. So yes, as I was saying, with all of the properties that we sell for sale by owner, you can hold the property while you do your research to look up questions like this about, you know, finalizing what you can do for a well, thinking about solar and how that would work, and looking in more depth on the climate and elevation. You can do all of that while you have a hold on the property, and no one else can buy it while you take that time. All you have to do is click buy or hold. Okay. So this question of wells leads into our main topic. It is part of the series on how to make money from land, but it's also a practical topic. We are talking about water hauling.
Hello, world.
And it's an important topic because there are many areas where wells are either infeasible or expensive. How strict is the zoning on that Castilla County lot? Let me move this out so you can see water hauling. It does have zoning. It's residential, but it's a fairly, I went over that actually. It's a fairly flexible zoning code. They do, I believe, allow mobile homes, and they allow RVs. Sorry, a lot of comments. Wow, this is great. And they do allow RVs for 14 days at a time, according to our research. But you should confirm that with the county yourself. And then I've noticed in Arizona and other locations, it seems like all the mountain areas are state-owned. Oh, that's a good observation. Especially like Nevada, but a lot of western states still have a lot of land that is either state-owned or owned by the BLM, which is a federal agency, but there's a lot of publicly owned land in the West still. Actually, in many areas, you'll see kind of like checkerboard patterns where you'll have patches of privately owned land and then patches of publicly owned land. It just has to do with the history of how land was distributed in the U.S. Many people see that as a benefit because a lot of the public land And water hauling like that is not advisable if you like your back. That is true. That is not the correct way to haul water. We'll get into that. Although it could also be a good way to ruckings in, right? A good way to get your 10,000 steps and also add some weight training. But yes, we're talking about water hauling. So usually we would be talking about water hauling in something like this. And who needs to do something like this? Well, anyone who's doing long-term RV camping in a more remote area will probably need to haul some water. Off-gridders, off-grid homesteaders might have to do this depending on how deep water is and how expensive a well is. I think you want me to get that? I like it too. Maybe we can order one for Christmas. Or I can order you one for your birthday, which is coming up. I think you could pull it off too. But there are some other, those are kind of the obvious examples, but there are some other companies or users you might not think of who would need to haul water. So event spaces, especially in rural areas, often need water brought to them. Construction sites and even agriculture and livestock owners could use water hauling services. Only with a tie, though. I'll wear a tie. I hope you'll wear a tie. I think you'd look good in a tie. Okay. So if you are in a situation where either you need to haul water yourself to your property or you would like to start a business off of your land or just in general start a business hauling water, the first thing you need to do is figure out where you're going to get your water. So the easiest way to do it would be to find a bulk water pickup site. Some municipalities or counties provide water fill stations at very affordable prices. There are also private companies potentially in areas. What about rain harvesting in Castilla? You could certainly do rain harvesting, and I think actually a lot of off-gridders in the San Luis Valley do rainwater harvesting. I don't believe there's enough rain because this is still, you don't necessarily think of this with Colorado, but Colorado is still a fairly arid climate, so you wouldn't be able to supply all your water with rainwater harvesting, but it's a really good supplement to another water source. But yeah, so the easiest thing would be to find ideally a publicly owned water fill station, but there are also sometimes private companies that have bulk water fill stations that you can use, and even a private company often has fairly reasonable pricing. Of course, the other option, if you're starting this as a business, is to buy land that you know has easily accessible water and drill a couple wells, and then tap your own wells and deliver water from those wells to people who don't have access to a well. Okay. So how much does it cost to haul water? Well, starting out, the first question is how much would it cost to actually get the water? So in terms of pricing, this is like one Facebook post I found specifically for Castilla County. They're talking about the water fill station at Fort Garland through the water utility company, but they're saying that they're paying a $10 cents per gallon plus a $10 fee. So it's pretty feasible, pretty inexpensive. You will, though, need to invest in a trailer, specifically a water tank trailer. And depending on how many customers you think you'll be supplying, you're looking at least 250 to 500 gallon tank. You can try and find a used trailer on something like eBay for a couple $1,000s, but a new one is going to be maybe $5,000 or $6,000. So it is going to cost you a couple $1,000s unless you know how to build one of these yourself, which I suspect that if you had that skill set, it wouldn't cost that much. Amazon does not deliver bulk water in Castilla. No, they do not. They might be able to deliver water bottles, depending on how far out in the country you are. Same day delivery, doubt it. But maybe once they have drones, you can have your water just dropped on you from above. So it does have a little bit of a startup fee, or startup cost, which is why it's good to figure out whether you have customers before you start something like this as a business. I mean, it'd be another question if you're doing this for your own off-grid homestead, but as a business, you first want to do some research and make sure there are customers in the area. So one great way to scope out customers is just look on Facebook groups for off-grid groups, see if there are off-gridders living in the area who need a new water delivery service. If you're local to the area, so you're a landowner yourself, you could just go door to door or put out flyers. Can you use your residential well for commercial uses? I don't believe so. This would be a question that you would have to ask the county. But I think when you use a well, for residential purposes, they do have limits on how much you can draw from it. So anything more than that, you would need to then go through their whole permitting system. So yes, if you were going to, in this particular area, set up wells specifically for the commercial purposes, you're going to have to go through a more extensive permitting process. And I think you would have to get water rights in this area, but should confirm that with the county. There are other areas, though, like we'll see in our Texas example, where you might not have to deal with the same kind of water rights regime. And other sources of potential customers might include event spaces, depending on where you're located. So, sometimes there are wedding venues or event spaces that are pretty rural and that would need water hauled for each event. So you can look up in your area event companies and also local contractors, because often construction sites have big water use. And if you're hauling water, how much would it cost approximately for a family of four? So in Castilla County, they were saying that if you're hauling water yourself, it's about, say, 10 cents a gallon, although a general rule of thumb for private companies is more like 8 to 20 cents per gallon. So let's say 500 gallons, you're looking at maybe $100 a month, maybe a little more. So hauling water for an individual family is not necessarily super expensive. It's just, it might be a pain. So, but there was the question of regulations. So different states and different counties have different regulations about selling potable water. Colorado doesn't actually seem to, according to my research, and again, you should always confirm this yourself, but doesn't seem to have regulations specifically around selling or hauling water, just hauling water. It does have a lot of regulations if you are the water source. So that's another important point. Like, this business probably works best for someone who's very new if you're getting your water from a public source like a water fill station or another company, because there'll be a lot more regulations involved if you are supplying the water yourself as well. And water literally weighs a lot. Yeah, that's the main problem. If you're hauling it yourself rather than paying for it, you need the correct vehicle. And you need to be able to move the water into the vehicle and out of the vehicle. So for many off-gridders, they set up this whole system themselves, and it's worth it, but others find it easier to just pay for the service. And yeah, that's all a good point. If you haven't set up your vehicle properly, because water weighs so much, it can actually be dangerous. Transporting the water. That's a good point. So you can also, in terms of scaling up a business, you can also add upsales like firewood, propane refills. gray water pickup, other things that you might be able to deliver to the house while you're delivering water if you wanted to expand your business. So let's look at a little case study here. Now I didn't find a case study specifically for Castilla County, but this is a water haul company in Texas, and they earn $3 million a year. They actually have, they're a state licensed potable water delivery company. So they actually bought a 5-acre parcel of land and drilled 2 wells. They might have additional parcels as well, but they specifically mentioned purchasing a 5-acre parcel of land to drill 2 wells, which they use to supply the water. It is also important to note that they're not actually delivering water to homeowners in this case study. They're delivering water to, if anyone guesses with Texas, to oil fields. So can you ask your neighbor to share their well water? Is that allowed under residential water? That probably wouldn't be a problem. IBC. She's close. Oh, wow, you're really knowledgeable on all of this. The IBC tote he pictures in his video holds 300 gallons, which is close to 2,500 pounds. That's a really good fact, and something people may not always think about, just how much water weighs. So yeah, this company, they deliver water specifically to West Texas oil fields. So that's an example of the kind of creative way you can think about a customer base. It doesn't just have to be off-grid homesteaders. And they produce 141,000 gallons per day. They bring in $3 million a year in profit, but they did invest $5 million in equipment. And the reason they're a case study and on YouTube right now is that apparently they're trying to sell their company for $18 million. And so this is an example of how something simple like water hauling can produce a nice business for someone with good profit margins and a potential nice price tag if you're able to sell it. So here again, they're looking at a unique customer base. And the interesting thing about this case study is the business never invested in sales and marketing. So they had upfront costs with the wells that they built and with their equipment, but they're not spending a lot of money on marketing. Some risks, though, and considerations when you're thinking about a business like this is, again, it is asset heavy. So they invested $5 million in equipment. And because of their specific client base, they're exposed to the boom and bust cycle of the oil fields. So that's one thing to think about when you're thinking about potential customers. All right, so I will move on then to the fact of the day. So in parts of, and does my partner want to take that question? Am I married? Because he's actually on. In parts of northern Arizona and New Mexico, thousands of families rely 100% on hauled water. So hauling water is a real strategy that many families rely on. Sometimes it's not optional, it's survival. So if you're going to own land in an off-grid area, it's good to think about this as an option, and it's worthwhile thinking about if you're going to do it for yourself, maybe there's a way that you can make a little extra income doing it for other people in the area who probably also need this service. All right, so that'll take us to our free gift. In the description, you'll see a link to our free gift, which is our guide on 17 simple ways to generate income from land. And in the description and the pinned comment, there'll also be a link where you can find all of our properties, including the Castilla County property that I highlighted today, and other properties in New Mexico, North Carolina, Florida, New York, and Oregon. Some of these might very well be properties where you're looking at hauling water, but many of them will also either have access to public water or be feasible for a well. And as another free gift for everyone who's watched this live stream, we do have a discount code for Colorado. It is LiveCO150. That's $150 off our Castilla County lot. I'll put that in the chat. That'll be over at midnight tonight. And if you want to see that property or any of our properties, go to land.gocap.com. And let's see, a few more questions before, or a few more comments. It's great to see so many comments today. A few more comments before I sign off. If I have a piece of land, 10 acres and 4 wells that produce 200 liters a week, do I need to support my deck safely if I store 200 liters? Well, you'll need to do that's probably more an engineering question. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna be storing lots of water somewhere, you will want to make sure that it has a structure that can support the weight of all that water. And in NC, can you meet your water needs just by collecting rainwater? That's a good question. I'm not sure that there's anywhere that you can actually meet all your water needs, but I can ask Mr. GPT quickly just to see. Maybe in Florida. I don't, and love Texas and Florida, do too, the two very popular states people love. And so a few things on North Carolina and rainwater. North Carolina law permits rainwater harvesting. That's actually an important note. Oh, thank you, Zaphael. Not every area, it's getting better. Regulations are getting better, but not every area does allow rainwater harvesting. North Carolina generally seems like it does, although you should confirm with your specific location. Although rainwater systems typically, so that's another important thing to note about rainwater, is most people, when they do a rainwater collection system, they're only using it for non-potable needs, so like irrigation, sometimes flushing laundry and cleaning. Because if you're going to use it for potable water, you're going to need a more heavy-duty filtration system attached to it. But anyway, I don't want to go too deep on this. And that's a good idea. Maybe we can cover rainwater harvesting in the next video, and I can do a case study to look at whether you can supply all your needs in North Carolina with rainwater. How about that? All right. So, wow, we actually went the whole half hour today. Thank you, everyone, for coming and engaging. Again, if you're interested in land, you can go to land.gocap.com. And I'll see you here tomorrow to talk about rainwater harvesting.